Okay, guys, this is getting harder. I'm on the ground, and I want to show you the next version of Mustangs Messerschmitts. Oh, I can't even talk. Say hi, Moose. I'm going to play against Moose today. I'm thinking I'm going to win because he has no thumbs. Put the puppy inside because I know the puppy would be chewing on the models. So, welcome back to part 2 of what is Mustangs Messerschmitts. Another nice day here in Cleveland. Looks like we got good weather for flying. Today I'm going to talk about climbing, diving, and first I want to go back into the speed and talk about that for a minute. So I'll get the stuff set up and I'll be right back. Okay, I had to take Ash out. He was just barking. He wanted to come out and see everybody and be part of the action. He'll probably chew the models and chew the stands, but that's the price we pay. I gave him his own chair. Oh, he's going to come down. All right, so let's get back to talk about Mustangs and Messerschmitts, speed, things of that nature. I brought out the experimental ME-109 once again, and some examples for the Zero Spitfire. I got a P-47 down there too that'll be used to show the different turn rates and roll rates. Those are pretty much the extremes of what we have. I mentioned that when you write the stats down for your aircraft, and right now we're talking about speed, I guess. So when you write your stats down, you take a look. You'll see that cruise speed right up there in the center, 8. One speed point in this game represents about 35 miles per hour if you really want to scale. The turn again is broken down into 3 equal impulses. Leftover impulses are always at the end. Our movement points are at the end. So speed 8, we're going 2, 3, 3. A turn, which once again, 3 impulses, is about 1.3 seconds or something like that. Maybe 3 seconds, I'm sorry. It's 3 seconds of real time. So each impulse is about 1.33 seconds. I think that's how it breaks down. So you can see you're talking a short amount of time that takes forever to play. So with that in mind, your speed can go up to your maximum level speed. You'll see maximum speed on the sticks. So stick 1 or 2, which is what we normally play on, 9. This 109 can go 9, which is 333 right there, 333 speed 9 in a turn. That's level flight. But of course we can up that a little bit with a dive if he's getting dive acceleration. If he's diving really fast, gaining speed, the fastest he can go is what's known as our terminal speed. Terminal speed is right there at 16. So if we have enough altitude, enough sticks, and we're playing this game from a very high level, such as stick 7 or 8 or 5 or 6, and you're in a throttle to the wall dive, you can accelerate up to 16. If we look at 16, you can see you have a lot of movement points to play with, 5, 5, and 6. But as soon as you level off, there are rules to lose that speed and get back to your maximum level for the altitude that you're at. Staying on the topic of speed, how do you accelerate? How do you get speed? How do you get up to that speed 16? The easiest thing to say is to get to the level flight. We'll talk about diving and dive acceleration later, but is to just say to your friend, companion, whoever's on your side, your wingman, you're throttling up, which means if you do 0 climbing in that turn, if you just spend your entire turn, every movement point in that turn, going level flight, you can still turn if you like. Advanced games may affect that, but if you just go level flight at the end of the turn, impulse 3, remember impulse 4 I said was a whining phase, you can call impulse 4 going to the bank phase. Somehow you noted that you did no diving and you declared acceleration, you get 1 more point of speed. So we'd go from 8 up to 9, and that would affect us next turn by going 333 instead of 233. That's how acceleration works. Every 3 impulses, 1, 2, and 3, that you declare you're accelerating and you do no climbing, you can gain 1 point of speed up to your level max. Remember level max? See where it says sticks 1, 2, that's here. See where it says sticks 1, 2, etc. That's your level max. Different airplanes, different engines, different configurations get different speeds for level flight. That's one way of considering it. Let's take a look at a Spitfire. Spitfire's pretty fast down low. They go speed 10. Here's my Spitfire Mark 1. Comparing the two once again because I want to keep into the example of comparing the 2 airplanes to blood red skies. So the cruise of a Spit though, look at that. the cruise of a spit is 6. So it has a ways to go to get up to 10. But when it does, it's much faster than a 109 low on the deck, which is kind of useful. So now that we know how speed works, and we'll talk about accelerating to dive, etc. Oh, chopping throttle too. You can chop throttle. If you're moving in the example like I showed in my first video, where you're trying to get real close to get that shot, and you know that if you had one more point forward, let's say you're on a speed 9, we got maxed out, we're turn or impulse number 1, and we go forward 1, we're getting close, we go forward another movement point, we're getting really close, we want to take that shot, but we have 1 left, just declare chopping. You would instantly go down to speed 8, follow the path for speed 8, and you could do all your acceleration. Anything you said you were doing would be canceled, but you'd be 1 less. Then you can take the shot. You just tell them, hey, I'm chopping throttle. You can only do that once per impulse. It's really easy to lose speed in this game. It's really hard. It takes a while to get your speed back up. So you really want to do that and make that shot count. Or chop throttle so you don't collide. And of course, we'll talk about collision later. So let's get back into to turning. In the advanced game, if you're in a turn, you could lose speed, but we're not worried about that. So before I go back into turn, remember speed, accelerate, you can get up to your level speed. You can dive. We dive a hell of a lot. We get dive acceleration that will come into maneuvers. So let's go back to a turn, or what a turn represents, and some maneuvers. I mentioned that your maneuver schedule is given by a letter, A through J, and a number, anywhere between 8 and 20. The 109 had a turn schedule. I guess I should keep this handy. Sorry. I wrote down E15, found in my stat sheet in the back of the rule book. The letter E, once again, represents how tight I can turn. 15 is the numeric representation of the radius for that airplane to turn in game terms. I'm using this little hash mark on my cement here to indicate a 15-inch radius circle. Notice that I've already set my 109 on a tight turn. I had moved my back fan to E. There's a little mark down there. The big blue is where I'm starting for this example. This is a 15-inch radius. When I move this forward, and if my stands were calibrated right, they've been beat up a little bit, and there's no Praise the Canario puppy in the way, this should roll pretty much, I bumped it a little bit, to the second blue one. That's a 15-inch arc, and you can do the math if you want for tangents and things of that nature. So obviously, to do the whole circle all around like this would give you your 30-inch diameter circle. So imagine that circle is my 109 turning. What we want to do, should I talk about maneuvers first, or climbing and diving? I may have to change this. So that's just what that E15 represents. We'll get back to that in a second because I want to go into some basics of diving and climbing. That E15, that 15-inch circle, is going to be really important coming up. One thing I forgot to mention, the way these stands are created, 1 inch forward is, 1 movement point forward. So if I level that out and go forward, it's about a 4-inch line. 1 movement point is 4 inches on the ground. That's really important because when airplanes dive and airplanes climb, at most we can only go up or down 4 per movement point. So let's talk about climbing and diving. Once again, I'm only using a half stand because I don't want to get the other stand in the way. Climbing and diving, starting again. An airplane can go up or down 1, no problem, per movement point forward. You do that, that's a gentle climb, you're just going up, no big deal. You will lose altitude if you climb, or lose speed if you climb. Losing altitude, that's pretty dumb. I guess I need more coffee. You will lose speed if you keep going up 1 per. We'll talk about speed loss. But all you're doing is going down 1 per movement point forward. Even if you're turning and doing your thing with your airplane, you will never ever lose speed. Nice little gentle 1 inch per movement point forward. That gives you a little bit of a nose down attitude. So what's the next type of climb or dive? Well, and you always want to go to the attitude of your airplane Are you banking or you're not banking? Then we call it altitude. Are you climbing or diving? Movement. Attitude, altitude, movement. We just made that up. The next type of dive or climb is a 2 or 3. If I go down 2 or 3 inches and I go forward 1 or forward 1 movement point, that equates to about a 22.5 degree dive. That's a mid-level climber dive. I represent it on my model by just a little bit more steeper climber dive than the 1 inch. Okay, and that's what happens when a price of Canario runs into your models. Obviously these aren't broken yet, so I got kind of lucky. Oh boy. Yeah, good dogs. I've seen worse from my models. That was a 2 or 3 inch climber dive. When you go to the maximum climber dive that you're going to do, it's your maximum, you angle it down to a 45 degree because 1 inch forward to a 1, 2, 3, 4 inch climber dive is 45 degrees. Besides dive bombers like the Dauntless or the Stuka, which can go straight down, that's as steep as you can dive. Or climb. There are some rules with the hammerhead stall that change that a little bit, but we're not going to worry about that. There are repercussions though for doing any of these dives or climb in whatever configuration. Once again, a gentle 1 inch per movement point forward is just a nose down, something like this. And you always want to show it on your airplane. That's the beauty of this game. You always want to show what your airplane is doing so your opponent knows. Second type of dive or climb is a 2 or 3 inch 22.5 degree dive per movement point forward. The maximum is a 4 inch 45 degrees straight up or down. So what are the repercussions? Well, the more you climb, the more speed loss you're going to accrue for the end of the turn. You'll get slower, but you'll be higher up and maybe use that to your advantage. When you are diving, you can gain speed by diving with the throttle to the wall, like I said. The other thing about diving, depending on what type of dive, you have to go down further and use the effects of gravity, fight the effects of gravity on your airplane. If I'm going down at a 1 inch per movement point, there's no effect of gravity. I say, hey, I just pull up and I'm fine. If you go to a 2 or 3 inch, you have to, when you want to level out, you just can't miraculously level out. You have to go down half of your turn radius to pull out. Remember the E15? We're going to use that number right now. And I think we're going to round up or down. I think we round down for this. So E15, that's my turn radius. I do a gentle dive, which is 2 or 3 inches per movement point. I have to say pull out. The minimum I could go down would be 7. So you always want to tell your wingman or somebody, pull out. As soon as you say pull out, you go down your minimum, you can be level. I could be diving all day, but unless I've told somebody pull out, I'm not really going to be level until someone knows. That's just a mechanic of the game, so you know what your pilot's doing. If, you could probably guess this already, if I go into a 4 inch dive, my maximum dive, remember the 1, 2 or 3, and then a 4. If I go into that 4 and I start going down 4 inches per movement point, 1, 2, 3, 4, I have to go down my full turn radius to pull out. That's just like scooping down. Let me do the airplane, just like in the movies. That represents me kind of scooping out, coming out like that. So it's not just all of a sudden leveling. I got to go down a little bit more. So smart players, as soon as they go into that dive, tell their friend, their wingman, pull out. So a minimum of 15 down. That's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then I could pull out. With that much diving, only 15, I'm not really going to gain any acceleration. That just allows me to get down somewhere fast. So obviously if you have a wider turn radius, you have to go down further. What would be an example of this? This big beast of a P-47 without the propeller. It's downstairs. This has a turn radius of C20. Remember that E15? That was pretty tight. C is a 20 inch circle. So this thing turns like a sled. It goes down and does maneuvers on that 20 inch table, or that 20 inch turn radius. It takes a lot longer for this thing to turn. It takes a lot longer for it to complete a maneuver. But it has a roll rate of 1, so it can snap right into that. The 0, on the other hand, has a turn radius of G10. It's a 10 inch circle, 20 inch diameter. It takes 4 movement points to get into that. It has a roll rate of 4. The A6M3 has a roll rate of 3, gets a little bit better. But that 4 turns into a G10. It can turn circles around anything. Its maneuvers, its dive pull-out is a 10-inch dive pull-out. So if the above example, 109 and the 0 both started up here where my hand is, the 0 would have pulled out right there. You can see that the 109 has to go down a little bit further. Just how tight turn radiuses affect diving, pulling out, that nature. A little confusing, but not too bad. Let's go back to the 109. We're going to use that E15 again for maneuver. And this is where that circle came in very handy. Move the stand, hopefully it doesn't get attacked anymore. We take this radius once again of the turn from that big blue dot to the second blue dot. Make that circle, that 30-inch diameter circle. Take it and move it 45 degrees up. So instead of the plane going around a circle like this, we're now going to have it go up the circle. Imagine that sphere. I want to show you 2 maneuvers. Maneuvers are either wingovers or chandelles. Those are the most important. The other, oh yeah, models and dogs. Look at the size of that paw. He's pushing the stand already. I don't think it was his turn. Besides a wingover and a chandelle, the chandelle is an uptight turn. The wingover is a down type turn. We have the leg roll, which is kind of like this, which is a good maneuver if you do it right. Once again, it's going to be little sets of maneuvering, moving the stand. Then of course we're going to have the loop, which is going to be up like this and then upside down. The split S. That split S is where you're going to go like this and go down. It's all going to be based, all the maneuvers of your aircraft are based on your turn radius number. That's why that E15, the 0G10, the Spitfire has a F12. That number is going to be so key because we're going to start doing maneuvers or start climbing and diving, and we got to look for a certain number. So how does this work? Well, let's do a diving turn with the 109. The maneuvers take your entire turn radius to complete. If you're doing a loop or a split S, it's going to take double it. It's going to be your entire diameter, which would be 30 for this. Let's just stick with 15s because of what we do most. There are different rules about going into maneuvers knife edge and straight, but let's just say we go into it knife edge. We're going speed 9. We had already accelerated to our attack speed, so we're going speed 9. We have 3 movement points to do this. If you remember, I said you have to do maneuvers at your maximum 4-inch up or maximum 4-inch down. 3 movement points, 4 inches is 12 altogether for one impulse. It's going to take us 1 more movement point in the next impulse to complete. And most maneuvers have a agreed upon pull-out, so you don't have to say pull-out for this. You just say maneuver. You can't do a maneuver unless you tell your wingman, somebody else on your team, somebody watching that you're doing a maneuver. You just can't suddenly go into the special part of the maneuver. So let's say it's my turn. All the enemies are up ahead, and I want to do a maneuver. I want to take that turn from a 2-dimensional, make it a 3-dimensional turn, and come down on somebody, a tight turn. I'm going to do a diving turn, which allows me to lose altitude but turn tighter. So what I would do is, I'm not going to change my plane. Remember, attitude, altitude. I'm going to pull this down to represent a 45 degree and go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Called my buddy maneuver. Hey Moose, maneuver. He doesn't care. And then I'm on E15. Make sure my wheel is zeroed. I would do my first movement point. Boom. E15. The reason I'm doing this, let's say I have a target right over here. Let's remove these bad boys. Sorry about all the shoddy camera work today, not enough coffee. And let's just say that spit just flew by. He's right there. He's on my altitude. He's on my stick. I want to get around tight. A tight E turn wouldn't get me around fast enough. He was lower than me anyway. So I did my first movement point. Now what I'm looking for is a group of 4 in my dive of my 15. That is the midpoint. somewhere there is the midpoint of 15, which is 7 or 8. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Next impulse, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, there it is, the magical midpoint. It is at this time when I can do my advanced 45-degree turn. And I'm going to need to get a ruler, so hold on 1 second. So I'm 2 points into my maneuver for my 109. I'm at that magical point that contains the midpoint. 1, 2, 3, 4, I went forward. 5, 6, 7, 8, that contains half of 15. I'm doing a diving turn, a wing over. I now line up a straight edge right along that part of my stand. I pray that this Spanish Mastiff doesn't knock it over. Instead of moving the stand forward, my forward movement is now going to be represented by, watch this, I can move this, pivot it on that leg, anywhere up to that line. And since that spit's going to go forward a little bit, I'm going to go right about there. That is that vertical part of the turn. That would be my second movement point. Remember, I'm going speed 9. I have one more to do. 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm still in a dive because I haven't done 15 yet. I remove it, decide where I want to be, at least half turn radius, and go forward. That would be my turn. I have one more movement point to do. Let's say the spit does something funky for the next impulse. My turn again. I'm still going speed 9, 13, 14, 15. Because I have an implied pull out at 15 for I did a maneuver, that could be where I end up, one movement point into the next impulse. You can see how I dove down. I'm below the spit. I'm going to have to do some climbing to get the shot. But that's how the wing over works. Chandelle is the same. You just do it going up. You put your ruler down on either side you're making the turn, and then you rotate your stand. The split S or loop, you would climb 1, 2, 3. If I use E15 for an example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I'm looking for the group that contains 15. Next impulse, 13, 14, 15, that would be my magic point. And instead of putting the ruler down to the left or right, I would put a little marker, and we do markers. We have like little square markers we put on the ground to represent. If our planes get too close to each other, we would mark that airplane, move it all the way from the battlefield. You would take your airplane that was marked and turn it away. You never want to have a plane, you never want to pick up a plane unless you know it's marked. And you never pick up a mark, a little white square. You might see that in some of my photos. But back to my maneuver. Let's say I've gone up 15, I've actually gone up 16. So we'll start again. I'm doing the loop. I'm speed 9. I put my guy into a climb, and I tell whoever I'm tell my maneuver, hey Ash, I'm doing a maneuver. You don't have to say which one, just say you're doing a maneuver. 1, 2, 3, 4, forward. 5, 6, 7, 8, forward. 9, 10, 11, 12, forward. Next impulse, 13, 14, 15, 16, because it's going to be double. That's when the magic happens. I would put a marker in front of my plane, do my split S in whatever direction, match it back up, and that represents the top of the loop or the bottom of the loop. That represents going up, coming down, and then I could stop there or I could keep going all the way down. You climb up to your 30 and then you're done. That's the vertical part of the loop, I should say, not the top. That would be the vertical part of the loop. We don't do too many loops, but we do a lot of split S's where we're going after bombers and the plane is moving forward on the base, and you roll on your back, and then you start diving. And when you get to that magical turn radius number, you would flip your stand, and you come in from behind the bombers, you come in from behind the other player. The good thing about diving, let me tell you about diving real quick. If you spend your entire turn, all 3 impulses, if we're going speed 9, and I go the first turn, which is 3, I dive 4 per. That's the maximum, remember? Only 3 types of dive. 1-inch dive, a 2 or 3-inch dive, or a 4-inch dive. If I spend the entire turn, the entire impulse diving, and I do that 3 times in a row, I do nothing but dive 4 inches turn. Doesn't matter if I turn or not. But if I dive 4 inches per, so that would be 8 times 4, 32. If at the end of the turn, I end up 32 inches down, I could then add my dive acceleration of 2. See that right above the 9? Dive acceleration. I could instantly go from 9 to 11. It goes to 11. So now I'm moving 3-4-4 next turn. Of course, if I level off, I'll start losing that speed till I get down to my max stick, because if I'm on stick 2, I can only go speed 9. But that's how you gain acceleration. If you start way up on stick, oh gosh, if I start on my stick 5 or 6 or 7, and my target's down low, and I just keep diving, I could get easily up to 16, no problem. I have all that speed. I could climb and use that speed loss eventually, but that's a little bit advanced. So what did we learn? Well, we learned what speed was, how you can accelerate. We learned about some simple maneuvers such as a wing over a chandelle, a little bit more complicated ones such as the loop or the split S. I didn't get into the barrel roll. I'll do that later. We'll also go into diving and climbing and how you lose speed, because that's some more math. So that's it for now. The puppies got in the way. It wasn't as exciting as last time. But thanks for watching, and hopefully I will show you maybe a turn or two or more how these maneuvers can be used in a game. Just remember, it's easy to lose your speed, it's hard to get it, and speed equals death. Take care all.